changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more.
Well, I want to jump in right now and introduce our guest, and I want to invite you all to post questions or comments in the comments section as she's here with us this morning. And I'm going to read her bio. Anne Bonney is a fun, energetic, international keynote speaker and courage igniter. I love that. She's an authority on change management, two-time author, host, and creator of Dancing in the Discomfort Zone podcast. Let me say that again because I love the title. Dancing in the Discomfort Zone podcast. She's an experienced virtual, in-person, and hybrid workshop facilitator. After 20 years in a highly successful corporate and nonprofit leadership positions, she now uses her experience, education, and expertise to ignite your resilience and your ability to, you know what? This is great. And I want to jump right in. I'm just going to bring her on and I'll tell you why. Because she talks about change, y'all. What she talks about is change. And this to me is something I cannot wait to unpack with her. So, Anne, first of all, thank you for being here with us this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Great to see little Teddy. He's so cute.
Thank you.
You're cute too, Will.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, it's so funny when I first started, because for years I recorded these and then I started doing them live. And one day I held him up and the next day everybody was like, where's Teddy? Where's Teddy? And now it's like no, but I don't think anybody watches beyond the first minute sometimes because they just want to see Ted.
They say don't act with animals or babies. And I think that's the case here.
Right. Exactly. That's right. I've heard that. Yeah. Yes. I'm looking for, here we go, our special overlay, Dancing in the Discomfort Zone. Once again, thank you to my producer, Dragon, for doing that. I've got so many questions. You provided questions. Prior to the pandemic, as a speaker, when I travel, this is not my topic. And yet it's the number one thing people seem like they want to come up and talk to me about is change. There's so much change. It's so stressful. Talk to us about the stress that we have around change. Why is change so stressful for us?
Yeah, it's basically because of all the unknowns. You know, our brains were invented to keep us alive, which is super convenient.
Right.
And our brains like knowns because we know we've survived that before. And so, you know, and now in the modern days, we don't have quite as much mortal danger as we used to, but our brain still doesn't know the difference between the stress of being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and the stress of having a new boss. So it creates this discomfort in our heads, to say the very least.
Isn't it interesting? And not only that, but because of the way our brains have evolved, we anticipate. We're the one animal that can really think about the future. So we fear change that may not ever even happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And we fear failure that we may never even fail at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a radio announcer in Seattle. He's retired now, but he was on the air for 40 years, and I've known him for 35 of those years. And every time we would get together, he was sure he's going to get fired next week.
I had that exact friend.
Do you?
Yeah.
We may be talking about the same thing. So the change is inevitable. I've heard it said that change is the one thing people desire most and also fear most. So it's that great dichotomy. We want change because we want the stimulation, and yet we are afraid. From what I understand, you explained that we need to be resilient for change and that there's 4 areas we can focus on. Is that right? Would you tell us about those, please?
Yeah, there are 4 areas that can help you be more resilient in change or in anything. But really any of the challenges we happen around change anyway. First of all, our own mindset. You know, we've got to be able to control the radio that's playing in our head. Control's the wrong word. We've got to be able to play an intentional role in the piece that's playing in our head. We also need to reach out to our social networks. Humans, whether we like it or not, are social creatures. And so making sure we're reaching out for help, reaching out to just vent with friends or just to make eye contact with some stranger on the subway and just have a little moment. That social piece is super important to help us feel like we're not always alone. The other piece is having goals, having a vision, understanding where I'm headed, whether it's a small short-term goal or just a big lifetime goal. That can help you understand, why am I dancing in this discomfort zone in the first place? Right, because I'm headed that way. And then the last one is change tolerance, just understanding that change is going to happen. And the more we resist it, the harder it gets. Now, all of those things are real easy for me to sit here and say, but those are four of the big aspects that you need to gain resilience in change.
It would seem that most of us have a 911 approach to our personal development. And that's true of me. And that is that, you know what? I love everything Anne just said, but right now things are going okay. And I don't really wait a minute. What was it Anne said? Right. That's why I think that listening to talks like this over and over again, also watching videos online and reading books is so powerful, because we've got to prepare ourselves.
Yeah. Just planting those seeds in your head, so when you do need them, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the key is to be resilient through change. Is it possible? It's so funny. People come up to me and say, and I'm sure this happens to you way more than me, I just don't like change. Like there's something wrong with them, like I breathe air, and right. As a human, I'm not supposed to. But you're saying that we are hardwired to not like change. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our brains don't like unknowns. That's why we like habits. That's why we like routine, because we know what's going to happen. We know what we do. We know what happens when we do that. And so, we can just relax and think about something else and put it on autopilot. That's why when stuff changes, and this is one of the things I talk about in my keynotes, I try to normalize the discomfort around change, because a lot of people hit that discomfort and then they stop. But unfortunately, what we need to do is kind of step into that discomfort zone. And the way I put it is dance in it. But understand that change is going to happen and it is uncomfortable. And you're not the only one who has a hard time with it.
There's that, relief in finding out that you're not the only one. It's like, I once read a book, and it was a personal development book. And I was like, oh my God, that is so me, what they're talking about. And then I went, Will, they wrote a whole book about this. It's not just you.
Right. I find incredible comfort in the fact that I'm not the only one who's a complete disaster. It's true, especially during the pandemic.
What you're saying is that you've developed resilience, and you've come to understand. I'm going to talk about you personally here. And you've come to accept change as a given, and it's still not your favorite thing. It's not your favorite club you'd pull out of the bag, right?
Well, no, because you might mess it up. You might fail. You have to think harder. You have to figure things out. You don't know if the next move you're going to make is the right move. Right. It's uncomfortable.
And yet, wouldn't you agree, or would you agree, that all beneficial progress in our life is the result of some change as well, right?
Absolutely, without question. And that's why I talk about the importance of dancing in the discomfort zone, because that's where all our growth happens. That's where, even though it's uncomfortable, that's where we learn how resilient and incredible that we really are.
Well, flesh out this concept of dancing in the discomfort zone. If you're on an elevator at Influence and somebody says, how do you dance in the discomfort zone? Your answer is?
Yeah, just keep moving, bob and weave. The way I think about it is, when something changes, you're essentially dumped out of your comfort zone. And the point between the old comfort zone and the new comfort zone is the discomfort zone. And how long you're in there, you don't know.
Say that. I'm sorry. I've got to stop you. I couldn't do this if you were on stage. Say that one more time. The distance between the comfort zone, your old comfort zone, and the new comfort zone is
the discomfort
zone. That's profound, y'all. Take that in a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Well, and that's the key, is eventually the change will become normal. It'll become comfortable, but you got to get through that discomfort zone first. And the more active we are in that discomfort zone, the more quickly we'll figure stuff out, feel more resilient, and get to that new comfort zone. It's really easy to get stuck, to get paralyzed, and that just, we don't move through it. And so as we think about dancing, moving, and just continuing to make moves, whether it's reaching out for help or making a call and doing some research or committing to something or whatever, those little steps help you to move more quickly so you don't get stuck in the discomfort zone.
So the great advice and the ancillary, or I guess the opposite of that, would be don't just sit there,
Right.
which is what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
When the train tracks divert and are now headed for you, get off the track.
Right. Or when the porch of the old comfort zone starts to, get a little broken down and falling off, it's time to move off the porch and go find a new comfort zone.
It occurred to me as you were speaking that I would never go back to my comfort zone in my 20s in certain areas of my life, or my 30s.
Right.
And yet, even in my 60s, I find that I'm somewhat stuck in some of those comfort zones. And so it's a good idea to address them. Because to almost initiate the change before life and forces us to.
Well, exactly. And that's where my word of the year this year is intentional. As I think about where I'm headed, and that's the part of goals and having a vision for where I'm going as I'm making some significant life transitions. I'm moving. I just went through a breakup. I'm leveling up my business. All of these things I'm trying to do very intentionally so that I end up where I'd like to end up. But I'm in the middle of that discomfort zone, just dancing around going, oh boy, what am I doing now?
Yeah. And really, like you say, the key is to be in it, to keep moving. And yet the activity I for myself, at least, it's try and minimize the internal activity, the stress, the angst, the uncertainty, and just do the next right thing, as they say in recovery. Just do the next right thing, but always be doing something because it's the only way to get you out of there. Is that right?
Yeah. And I like to use the metaphor, if anybody's ever, if you haven't, I don't know where you've been, but seen the Harry Potter movies. And you know how when he goes in the dorm, he starts going up the stairs and all of a sudden, like an Escher painting, the stairs are moving. And it's kind of like that in the discomfort zone. You're not going to see the whole path. And even if you do think you see the whole path, oftentimes it changes. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? You just have to, again, take that next step. You look down, you can see what that next step is.
It's like, this is one of the great dialectics of living. We want change. We hate change. We're uncomfortable with change. We struggle through change just to be allowed to change again.
Yeah. Right.
It's there's no there, as Gertrude Stein said.
Mm-hmm. No destination.
So one of the metaphors you use which I really like, is it's dealing with challenges like it being a mouse in a maze. Share that, would you please?
Yeah, you kind of have to be the leveled up mouse, right? If you think about dropping a cute little white mouse in a maze, he runs down the hall, hits the wall, and says, what do I do? Go, turns, runs down the hall, hits the wall. What do I do? Turn, right? And he just looks at his options and takes one, looks at his options and takes one. Now, what I recommend people do is, instead of hitting the wall and saying, what do I do? And looking at the two options that are immediately available, run down the hall, hit the wall, and then climb up and peek over the top. And then you can see the whole maze. And instead of asking, what do I do? Which your brain's going to give you that immediate thing that you have always done, ask instead, how else could I solve this? Because oftentimes in change, coming up with a new solution, maybe it didn't work in our 20s or in our 30s, but in my late 40s, this may be the right solution. So how else can I solve this? Makes your brain say, oh, well, we could do this. We could do this. We tried this once. We could do that again. Maybe this. I heard that worked for somebody. And you get a whole lot more creative in your problem solving. You start questioning assumptions and you start looking at a lot of different options that maybe you hadn't considered before.
I want to make sure this lands, because I think that's a very important thing. When you were talking about rats in a maze, and you read the Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, he talks about how rats always turn right. That's why grocery stores are all laid out almost exactly the same. I was about to say humans do too. It's true. Rats turn right, and humans do as well. And so in our minds, we choose what we feel has worked in the past. But to take a moment and to literally ask ourselves, because what's coming to our mind is a hardwired brain synapse firing.
The habit,
and
the known.
it's the habit, it's the known.
Yep.
And even if it doesn't work sometimes,
Right,
oftentimes we'll take it.
So true.
Well, that didn't work. Let me try that again. That
Yeah,
didn't work
right.
again. Let me try it one more time. So yeah, this idea of when you get there, and in life, we're almost always walking to those change points. Wouldn't you agree? So to sort of adopt an approach of questioning your habitual way of doing things and saying, how else might I do this? It seems like that would be a good way of living in change. What do you think?
Well, yeah, and it at least the beauty of this, and again, this is another thing that boosts your resilience, is you start to realize I have more than one option. And the more options you feel you have, the more control you feel you have over a situation, and the less a victim of the situation you feel, which is a heck of a lot better place to be.
So many people, as you say, will ask everyone except their own heart, their own selves.
Yeah.
And we are ultimately the ones who have to know and have to make the decisions about our life. So give us some tips for making the challenge of change, since change is inevitable. I'm going to change today. You're going to change today, everybody, in some ways, subtle or large. So what are some tips for making it a little less terrible?
Yeah, right. First of all, reminding yourself what we talked about a couple minutes ago, that nobody has it all figured out. Understanding that you're not the only one who's having a tough time with that. That's the first thing for me that I always go to. All right, I'm not the only one who's a disaster here. The other piece is acknowledging your feelings. You know, so often we spend so much time trying to be positive and be positive. And I'm not saying don't look at the positive and find the silver lining. That's definitely something to do. And saying, this is really hard. I'm really uncomfortable right now because I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to have to figure it out. It's going to take more time, and I'm a little scared that I might fail at it. And by taking a little time to acknowledge your feelings, you're going to be able to say, okay, cool. I get it. I'm uncomfortable. And let's turn our attention away from the old comfort zone, off the porch, into the discomfort zone. What can I do now? Right? By acknowledging, giving those feelings a moment and just seeing them, maybe going to the boxing gym, or maybe punching a pillow, or having a good cry, or having a vent session with a friend. Then you pull your boots on and say, all right, cool. I understand I'm not happy about this, and I want to move forward, because the faster I move forward, the faster I get to that new comfort zone. And then reaching out for help. For some weird reason, we think we have to do things alone. And whether it's getting psychological help, or getting help from somebody who's been there before, or just asking somebody some opinions, or just saying, hey, can we hang out and watch Netflix tonight because I don't want to be alone? Knowing that we're not alone can really recharge our resilience batteries, and making us feel like, okay, cool, I'm not alone in this, and I got this.
You know, that in and of itself is worth the price of admission, as they used to say, because if you look, the one of the reasons the complaint-free thing has been very successful is that it's people supporting people in a change.
Yeah.
And if you look at the most successful thing for helping people lose weight in history was Weight Watchers, for keeping it off. And it is nothing but a big support group. I lost 100 pounds on Weight Watchers when I was 19. And Alcoholics Anonymous. And that idea of, I've got to try and figure it out, or I've got to go it alone. I see speakers do that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to look at Anne's website and
Yep.
I think that I need something like this and something like that and something like that, rather than sitting down and speaking to a professional speaker and saying, look, what's step number one? Let me go do that. you know?
Yeah. And NSA, another big support group.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. That's the National Speakers Association. Totally.
Yes.
And yeah, having that support is incredible. And again, you made a great point that I also need to listen to my own heart, and being able to bring other people in to help you, again, makes you feel like, at least I'm not alone in this. And the difference, and I love this distinction, the difference between Complaining and support is being more solution focused rather than problem focused. Again, how can I solve this? Or maybe just solving that discomfort right now that I want to be with somebody else.
You know, it's interesting because that you've really just defined positivity. I've shared this story before. One time I was getting ready to speak and somebody was sitting at the next table at a restaurant. They said, "Who's speaking?" And they said, "Me." And somebody said, "Who is that?" And they said, "Oh, one of those positive thinking guys." Like negative, like really bad. And I looked up positive, and positive just means present. Positive, negative means absent. And so a positive person is someone who takes what is present and what they can do rather than focusing on what they can't and what is missing. And that seems to tie in so well to what you're saying. When we're going through a change, rather than going, like this, which, initially we need to do that. Don't get me wrong. As someone who went through a divorce myself a couple of years ago, you need that time. And then at the same time, you sit down and you say, what have I got? What are my assets? And you have to build on those because you can't build on your deficits, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't build on the problem. You can solve the problem. So being solution focused, being positive doesn't mean not acknowledging what's wrong.
Right.
Right. That's being oblivious. That's not paying attention. Right. But being positive means saying, okay, cool. There's something I can do here. Maybe if it's just for the next couple hours.
Which is, which ties back to that idea you were saying earlier of, as a buddy of mine, I guess, used to summarize it, do something even if it's wrong.
Well, that's the thing.
If you're in the middle of something, do something. Don't just sit there. Go ahead, please.
Right. And it's such a risk to act. One of the 5 Ps in my book is punch it, because it's time to go. It's time to, hit the gas. And we worry, again, because we can think about all the bad things that haven't happened yet. We worry that we'll fail. But the fact is we grossly underestimate our own ability to figure things out. We are incredible about being able to figure stuff out. Think of all the things you figured out just in the last 2 years. We underestimate. We think really hard about all the things that might go wrong, but we forget to think about what could go right.
And everybody here regular knows this. I'm listening repeatedly over and over and over the Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. And he talks about this idea of give no thought to what might occur in the future. Hence, don't worry, because you may not be prepared to handle that now, but when it gets here, you will be. Right. So why worry about your inadequacies until presented with the actual situation? Great stuff.
Yep.
All right. I always like to ask, and we're going to come back in for comments. And also I want to share how people can get your different survival kit. And
difficult people survival kit.
Difficult people. It says different survival kit. I don't know
it's so
hard. I
hard.
see it. Got it.
Yeah, it's so hard to deal with our own dealings with change, but we also have to deal with other people's difficulty with change.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Sometimes there's some mindset, whether it's our team at work, whether it's our family, it's tough enough to deal with your own challenges, let alone everybody else's. So that'll help you a little bit with that. Actually,
you just scared me to death. It's so funny because I was thinking about that the other day. I was walking through the airport, flying back, and I was thinking about some stuff I'm working on, which I'm always doing. And I'm like, you get this idea that if I work on it and everything else, then I'll be a perfect little puzzle piece and everything will be great here and everything. And then I look around and I go, those people are messed up more than I am, or at least as much. So it's a moving target, my friend. Have fun.
Well, and some days they're the disaster and some days you are. So
exactly. Yes. Well, this is your opportunity to post a question or to ask Anne anything you'd like. We're going to take just a couple of minutes here, and we do want to remind you, please, to go ahead and to share and to post. That's how we build this positive online community. Like, share, comment, and that is true whether you are watching this live with us now or if you are watching this on replay.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more. complaint-free world no